doing a mailbag video, and I think this is a good way to actually do it here, and that is taking questions that we haven't talked about. Instead of cutting a video out from the live show, I take questions, throw it on here. So again, in the comments throughout the week, continue to throw questions in the comment section. I'll pick them up and make a video out of it. That's what we're going to do now every single week. I think it's an easy way to kind of give back to you guys. I know we only do about 30 minutes on mailbag segment throughout a week, and I think it's important to continue to kind of just answer you guys' questions. So we're going to go through a couple questions here, give you my answers on this bad boy, and entertain you on this Saturday here. So the first question is, will the Lions target a kicker in the draft? Well, we just re-signed Michael Badgley, and that is great. I don't mind him coming back and competing again. I think that's perfectly fine. I got no hate for Badgley. I got no ill will or anything like that, but I do think that the Detroit Lions are going to draft a kicker or get one as an undrafted rookie to compete with Michael Badgley. That is what they have shown so far, at least Brad Holmes has, continuing to have competition at the kicker position, and that is one position that still don't really have a full grasp on, so makes sense to go ahead and draft a kicker, whether it be in the 6th or 7th round, and or if they don't do that, bring somebody in to compete as an undrafted rookie for Michael Badgley. Just let the best man win. So I do think they're going to draft a kicker, 6th or 7th round. I think that's the smartest way to go because we're talking about a 6th or 7th round pick that potentially could be a starter for many, many years. That is not a waste of a draft pick, if you ask me. And if you draft a guy who in the 7th round, so you get a wide receiver or some other position that don't make the team, that's a wasted draft pick. So I have no problem throwing a draft pick towards a guy who they think that could be a kicker for a long time. And look, they come in here, he does well, great. If he doesn't do well, great. It's not that big of a deal. So yeah, I think they will. Let the best man win. Simple as that. Next question here. Do you believe Brad Holmes will target a high-priced free agent? It's not priced. Prized. P-R-I-Z-E-D. I think they will do... I don't think they're going to go with a Chris Jones. I like it. I think that'd be awesome. That type of player. I think they would go for a top end. Well, not... a top end in this free agent period for a cornerback and or a edge rusher that fits the system here. We've seen multiple times where the Detroit Lions will target players and see if it works out in free agency. And so if you look at Cam Sutton or Emmanuel Mosley, they're pretty much targeted there. One got injured. The one didn't pan out is probably as good as we wanted to. So they'll do a situation, I think, like that, whether it be, well, like as the Danielle Hunter. I think he'd be amazing with the Detroit Lions. I think he'd be a perfect fit opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. It is a higher prized free agent or priced free agent, but it's not the biggest name in the world, right? Because remember, he's 29, so you get him on a 3-year deal. And that's something you got to look out for is they're not going to do probably 5-year deals. It's going to be 1 to 2 to 3-year deals, maybe 1 3-year deal, and the rest be 1 or 2. We know how they work. And so Danielle Hunter, falls in that category at the age of 29. If somebody was to give him a 5-year deal, it's going to be one of those things where they can get out of the contract after 3 years because of his age. So that could be a player of that nature. I don't believe they go after like a Josh Allen type who is younger and you have to give a big deal for. Don't believe that would be the case. Maybe they want to get a cornerback. That could be you get a kind of player that is really a number 1/number 2 right now. I think it's probably, look, L'Jarius Sneed, right? Then you got player like Fuller, who have shown bursts of greatness, but not necessarily a Sauce Gardner or a straight-up player who is going to shut down a whole side of the field. Maybe they do another type of $11 million deal for a corner position. Not the elite of the elite, but considering the fact that they probably would get their cornerback in the draft, that will be their number 1. So that's what I'm looking at there. One of those guys, and then the rest more of depth, maybe not big deals, and re-sign our own guys. So I don't think we're going to go out here and be a team like the Philadelphia Eagles when they had the dream team and they signed all these guys, or at the time the Washington Redskins where they got Albert Haynesworth. Nothing like that. But I do think they're not going to be completely prude here and get a couple of guys to help this team out. It makes sense. That's what they would do because we need it. We're in a position now that we're in win now, and we're literally probably two pieces away from being a pretty dang good defense. And so it's really important for Brad Holmes to look at this and say, yeah, okay, we're not going to be completely irresponsible here, but we're also not going to not do anything. So I think that's more the situation that they're going to be in. But let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think? What do you think that how Brad Holmes attacks this bad boy in about 2 weeks? It's almost here, so we're about to find out, and that's what's a great thing. Okay, should the Lions re-sign Josh Reynolds? I like Josh Reynolds, and a lot of people's got bad taste in their mouth in the NFC Championship game, but you also can't throw away his body of work since he's been a Detroit Lion in the last year. He can be a number 2, but he's not going to be a number 2 here. We're talking about 3/4. But he has that ability. He has a connection with Jared Goff. Yeah, I want to bring Josh Reynolds back for the right price. Now, there could be other teams that look at him and say, we're going to give you a bigger deal. I don't know if that's the case. There could be. But to me, he fits perfectly in Detroit. This is where he needs to be. All right? And especially he's going to be moving down on the depth chart with J-Mo being the number 2. It's only going to get better. It's not like he had 600 yards receiving. He ain't going to cost you that much. He's a team player. He makes big plays. He makes some big plays, big-time catches, except for the NFC Championship game. So I can't just throw that away for one game. I can't do it. And so I would like Josh Reynolds to come back. Not the biggest name in the world, but he does a lot for this team. 600 yards is not chump change for a number 3. That's pretty good numbers, and it's hard to replace that type of production. So yeah, bring back Josh Reynolds, and you didn't put the question here before, but Donovan Peoples-Jones as well. I wouldn't mind bringing him back, but we got to bring some of these guys back and that help this team out. What is one player the Lions should draft that may not be well known? Oh, there's a couple players that you can look at. I like Beebe, the guard, and I was actually watching a mock draft, and they threw, I think it was Spielman, threw him to Detroit in round 2. I love that pick. I talked about him before. I think that is a guard. The Lions immediately would be a starter, and he would make this offensive line better. I would love to have him on this offensive line. I think that is a guy who I'd like to get for the Lions potentially late in the second round or in the third round. You get a guy who instantly would be a starter for this football team, young, fresh, and he's good. He's good. You don't have to get a guard necessarily in round 1. You get some. There's some good ones too in this year's draft where you can get it in rounds 2, 3. Unfortunately, we don't have a 4th round pick. But if they were to trade at some point, you could acquire another 4th round pick. But the 2 and 3 in those rounds, you get some good guards, and I think that's where the Lions should attack and should get better in the draft at that position. I do. I don't know the future of Jonah Jackson and Graham Glasgow, but I know that we really do got to keep with this offensive line because we don't want to be a situation where we're in a world of hurt when our strength is the offensive line. We got to make strength a strength and keep it a strength. Let's not throw this position away just because we need defense. We got to continue to grow. Would you trade for a cornerback and an edge rusher? Trade up for a cornerback or an edge rusher? Yes, I would. We don't know if there's going to be run on corners or I'm not going to even say a run on edge. I don't think there's going to be a rush. There's one really good pass rusher, and then that kind of jumbles up a little bit. But when it comes to the cornerback position, there's a lot of good corners, and I think the situation is will they have to trade up to get one if there's a run in the middle of the first round. And I got a sneaky suspicion that there could be. And so if that's the case and they feel they got to get a guy, I'm all for it. Depending, obviously, but it wouldn't be a significant jump, maybe 5 or 6 spots, because there is a plethora of cornerbacks kind of near the same grade around that area. So I think if they want to target one, go ahead. If they're going to trade up for a pass rusher, it's probably would have to be Jared Verse. Other than that, I don't know if I'm really willing to trade up, because you could get same value. I don't want to say the same value, but you can get some value in the second round. Maybe trade back, right? You can get some good value there. But Jared Verse, to me, is probably the only guy legit I would jump up and trade up for. Put him opposite of Aiden. But then you're talking about, you're going from 29 to maybe 11 or 10. And that's a high jump, but that would really be it. Trading back, I'm all for it. If there's a run on whatever position they like, and their first-round grade, even though we're still in the first round, but they don't have any more first-round grades on players, then trade out. I'm perfectly fine with that and get more draft picks, whether it be this year or for next year. I think that's the responsible thing to do. Should the Lions draft a wide receiver? Personally, I don't think they should draft a wide receiver unless we don't bring back Josh Reynolds and Donovan Peoples-Jones and the depth is exactly the same. Then I would say you're probably going to have to go ahead and draft one, maybe in the 3rd/5th round in that area. But I really want the Lions to just bring back their own guys and not have to use a draft pick on a wide receiver. I prefer that not to be the case because we do have needs. Guard and a lot on defense, and I would like to finally get those positions done. I think we're so fed up as Detroit Lions fans, consistently have the same issues on defense, and it's not improving. We need to fix the defense. It's got to happen at some point. So I'd like to use all my draft assets on something different. Or even, I would rather, if you're like, we got to go offense, I'd rather go offensive line than a wide receiver. I'm really not looking for wide receiver or running back, quarterback, or even a tight end, really, in my opinion, in this draft. I want this to be defense and trenches, and that's the type of draft we need to have. So, appreciate you guys' questions. Again, comment below. Continue to comment, and I'll pick them up and do it on another mailbag. With that said, folks, adios.